Thanks, Cheryl. Well, across Atlantic Canada, a quiet revival is rising through the airwaves of Inspire FM. For more than 2 decades, this ministry has been broadcasting hope and sharing faith from Moncton to Halifax, reaching hearts across the Maritimes with the message of Jesus. Today, Dr. Terry Branscombe, CEO of Inspire Christian Media Ministries, joins us to share his personal story, his passion for ministry, and what he sees God doing right now on Canada's East Coast. Dr. Branscombe, welcome to 100 Huntley Street.
It's awesome to be here, Lara.
Well, it's such an honor to have you join us today. You know, I'm such a fan of what you do through Inspire FM and the way you reach hearts with the message of Jesus across the Maritimes. You know, Dr. Branscombe, your journey into following Jesus and feeling called into ministry happened at a young age. You're about 15 years old. Tell us about your early faith journey and how God led you.
Absolutely. From now on, just call me Terry.
I thought you would say that.
That's right. I'm just a farm boy. 15 years of age, had been going to church and Sunday school all my life, but never really understood what the gospel was. Working on a term paper on the origins of the universe, thinking about Big Bang Theory and so on, and the concept of millions of years. And then I got thinking about where was I going to be millions of years? Well, I couldn't comprehend that at all. I got to think about where would I be even 100 years? And all of a sudden, I began to realize that if there was a heaven, I wasn't going to be there. I knew that I wasn't a good guy. And all of those Bible verses that I'd memorized now began to make sense. And I felt the presence of God. I felt fear, remorse, a godly sorrow, began to weep, asked for God to forgive me, felt the presence of God, was born again in my bedroom alone. The next day I went to school, grade 9 it would be, at Petitcodiac Regional High School, and the guys noticed that I wasn't acting the same. I didn't tell anybody. At any rate, fast forward, I'm a new believer, excited about my faith, and it's probably about 6 months or so later, and in grade 9, in those days when the dinosaurs still roamed, we had to choose whether we were going to go into academic or shop or commercial, and so I got thinking about what am I going to do? You know, God, what do you want me to do with my life? And the only thing that made sense was ministry. And I shared with a Christian high school teacher, Mrs. Fran Jones, who's still a very dear friend to my family and I shared with her what I felt God saying, and she began to weep. And she said, I've been praying for you. That became a defining moment in my life, Laura. I knew that God had made me to work for him, to serve him, to be what God wanted me to be. And so all of those other kids in school that are struggling with identity and purpose and what am I going to do with the rest of my life, I never struggled with that. So I actually started studying Greek at 16 years of age on my own. Went to my pastor and said, I want to serve God for the rest of my life. And so this young pastor got me teaching, preaching. I remember my first sermon, a dog came forward at the end of the service.
Like a dog, like a puppy?
Yeah, a dog, a farmer. It was a little country church. The windows were all painted shut. It was hot. The back door was open. And just as I'm giving the altar call at the end of the service, this little country Baptist church, a local farmer was sitting at the back, and his dog came in to find him, but walked to the very front and sat down and looked up at me just as I gave the altar call. My grandmother has reminded me ever since I'm the only preacher that can even get the dog saved. So, but seriously, that was a defining moment. And so all of these years, I'm 64 years of age, that's what's filled my mind. I've not always walked with God. I have had struggles, which we'll talk about. But that's how it all started.
Well, it's beautiful. You know, you've referenced the Bible verses that you memorized, and I know your family exposed you to church and brought you to Sunday school. You've referenced your grandmother and the power of family in your life. You're also a family man today, married with kids. What's that like for you?
It's a blessing. It's amazing. I think it was Billy Graham that said that God's grandkids are God's way of rewarding you for not killing your teenager. And I am blessed. 2 adult children that I love. They live near me. I have good relationships with them, and 5 amazing grandkids, ranging from 6 to 19. That, it's precious. It certainly
Beautiful.
is.
Well, you've mentioned this long journey in ministry. I mean, it spans 40 years. And some of the highs and lows, that you did experience through ministry. Tell us a bit about some of the ministry positions you held and some of the challenges and how God met you and what growth looked like.
Yep. Started as a little country preacher, 18 years of age. The Bible college that I attended, the president of the school called me into the office. I thought I was in trouble. And he said, no, he said, there's a little church looking for a preacher. And he said, I've recommended you, 18 years of age. And so I started my journey. I had taken evangelism explosion training at 16 years of age. So I went door to door, knocking on doors, cold calls, sharing the gospel with people. Thought I was going to be the next Billy Graham, right? 18 years of age. About a year later, was actually considering dropping out of school and just going to go full hog into ministry, and realized, though, that I just didn't have what it took. There's a book John Maxwell has written called Talent is Not Enough. And the rigors of a college education, the rigors of studying Scripture and learning Greek and Hebrew and sitting under godly men who are training you has made the difference for me. From being, as one pastor said to me years ago, you can be a sword used for the Lord, or you can be a sharp sword. Go and get your education, become as sharp as you can be. And I thank God for that advice.
Throughout all those years of ministry, have there been moments where you've had dark nights of the soul, where you've experienced challenge? I can think of my own experiences like that. And then how did God meet you in those moments and bring you through them?
Probably almost 25 years ago now, I had stepped away from ministry. I had been wounded, been involved in church planting. Things didn't go well. And people that I trusted, I felt abandoned. Part of that was my own personal issue. It had nothing to do with ministry, but was called to serve and help restart a church. So I moved my family there. We built a home. We began to put our shoulder to the grindstone, as it were. And 4 years in, we had gone from 6 senior citizens to about 60 adults, 35 or 40 kids. We were in a building program. And there were a couple of people that didn't seem to appreciate the changes. And so there was a decision made by leadership to end my responsibilities. It came very much as a surprise and a shock. In the aftermath, I lost my home. It was a very difficult time emotionally. I've never struggled with depression, but that really was a very dark time. And I thank God that He sustained me through that. It was very, very challenging. But years later, in fact, probably 15 years later after that, so about 10 years ago, I was in another country teaching. And all of a sudden, I realized why the Lord had allowed me to go through that suffering. Because the group of people that I was doing leadership training with in this other country were suffering. I could never have understood or have had any kind of compassion to serve them. And so God never wastes a hurt.
No, He certainly doesn't.
Yeah.
As you're speaking, it's hard for me not to think about the person watching right now who might be in ministry and experiencing a challenging season, because I think if you're in ministry long enough, eventually you will experience that, because we are human and, humans are broken, we are fallen, we hurt one another. What would you say to the person right now who's feeling discouraged in ministry and wondering about walking away, and yet here you are, someone who walked back in to serve the Lord? What would you say to them?
I'll say, first of all, I've walked away 4 times. I've left ministry 4 times in 40 years, broken, angry, hurting, angry at God, angry at the church, and then made the decision, as Rick Warren would say, to get better rather than bitter. So if you're in that place right now where, I just don't know what to do, first of all, acknowledge the fact that you are in a spiritual battle.
Okay.
You're not in a vacuum. There is an evil one, and there is a culture and a world, the world, the flesh, and the devil. Jesus would describe it, and the Apostle John would describe it. And so I think recognizing that you're in a battle, number one. Number two, recognize your limitations, that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be all things to all people. And then thirdly, reach out. Reach out. I know we have a prayer line here in your denomination, in your group of peers. Is there somebody that you can confide in? I actually had a gentleman from another denomination that used to call me every Monday morning and say, Terry, how are you? How are you doing? I'm not a part of your tribe, so you can say anything you want. It's not going back anywhere. And interesting, because God used that 1 year after I had been released from responsibilities. The gentleman who was responsible behind the scenes called me. He said, I want to talk to you. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to have anything to do with you. I don't want to be mean or rude, but I don't want to have this conversation. He said, no, you don't understand. I need to see you. So we met at a local Tim Hortons, and this very powerful man looked at me and he said, I'm sorry. I was wrong. And what he didn't know is that the individual who had every Monday called me when I was released, this individual left that church, went to another church. That was the church he went to. And God used that to then minister to this man in his brokenness. And we're not best friends, but I have no animosity. God's released me from that. I've forgiven him. And we have, when I see him, we chat. So God can redeem all of that.
It's incredible, listening to you right now. I know people's hearts are being filled with strength and a vision for what could God do if I just, stay the course, stay close to him and get the support I need. Terry, you are in an incredible role at Inspire FM. Tell us about your role. Tell us about everything happening at Inspire FM.
Well, God is a redeeming God. And if you had told me, 3 or 4 years ago that I would be in this role, I would have laughed at you. A very good friend of mine, Dr. Jeff Lutz, had started International Harvesters for Christ Evangelistic Association and Harvesters Radio. And over 20 years, he bootstrapped this ministry to the point where there were 8 frequencies, the 3 radio stations, Moncton, Halifax, and Charlottetown. And during COVID, the Lord took him home, 58 years old, very suddenly. I was sucker punched when I got the call. 2 years later, through a series of events, God made it very clear to me after a very fitful night with very little sleep. I woke my wife up in the middle of the night muttering, I think I'm supposed to do this. I think I'm supposed to do this. At any rate, I accepted the challenge, and I feel very much like Caleb. He said to Joshua, I'm 85 years old, but I'm as vigorous now as I was 45 years ago. Look it up in Joshua 14. And he said, I'm taking this mountain, Hebron. And that's what he did. And so God has definitely, I have a very clear sense that God's called me to take all of the experience of 40 plus years, all of the failures, all of the joys, all of the good things, and to pull that together to now what is called Inspire Radio, and to blanket the Maritimes with Christian radio. And I recognize that now it's about 35% of our population that get their media fix from terrestrial radio. Digital is podcasting in particular. So we've launched a mobile app. We've begun doing some podcasting. We're creating our own content. We have partnerships with the Canadian Bible Society, PEI for Life. We're working with other ministries now at developing new content. And we're going to get into video content in the near future. I'm actually looking for someone to hire right now, if there's anybody listening that's interested. But what's most exciting is how God is using this. For me personally, it's a new adventure, right? For the ministry to see a whole new season of growth. And it's not about its challenges. We invested $250,000 last year in upgrading technology, in rebranding. We moved into a 3,000 square foot studio. We're now, by the way, just last week, I got official word. The work permits were approved in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. We're building a $140,000 studio, and it's already been completely paid for. That's God.
That is God. And Terry, thank you for your faithfulness in all of these years serving God and now serving him through Inspire FM. We are so thankful, and we want our viewers to, tune in, go and listen in, those on the East Coast. We're so thankful for what you're doing. We know that this is part of the quiet revival we see happening in Canada. Terry, thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing your story and your vision for all God is doing in the Maritimes.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Well, if you're watching right now and you want quiet revival to take place in your heart or in your community, maybe something you heard in this conversation would inspire you to call our prayer partners. You know what I'm thinking about right now? If you would be willing to call our prayer partners and pray about your local pastors and leaders, pray for them. Pray that God would protect them and lead them and give them peace. Pray that they would be strengthened in a season of awakening across Canada. Call 1-866-273-4444. Well, stay with us because there's so much more inspiration to come.